History remembers dynasties as enormous machines. They command armies, collect taxes, build palaces, and stamp one family name across maps for centuries. Yet some of them reached a final turning point through an absurdly small decision. One forged letter, one locked gate, one reckless charge, or one order issued by a ruler who believed failure was no longer possible. No dynasty truly collapses for only one reason. Rot comes first. Empty treasuries, disputed successions, angry subjects, and ambitious generals prepare the ground. But in the cases that follow, one decision struck the weakened structure in exactly the wrong place, and a family that expected to rule forever discovered how quickly forever could end. Imperial China, 210 BCE. The Qin dynasty had unified the warring states only 11 years earlier, but its survival was placed inside a sealed letter. Qin Shi Huang died while traveling through eastern China, probably at Shakyu. His chief minister Li Si and the palace official Zhao Gao concealed the death because they feared rebellion and a succession crisis. The imperial carriage continued moving, officials submitted reports to a dead emperor, and carts of salted fish were reportedly placed nearby to disguise the smell. The legitimate heir was the emperor's eldest son, Fusu, who was serving on the northern frontier with the respected general Meng Tian. Zhao Gao preferred Fusu's younger brother, Hu Hai, whom he believed he could control. Zhao Gao persuaded Li Si to alter the succession order and compose a false command in the dead emperor's name. The forged document ordered Fusu and Meng Tian to kill themselves. Fusu obeyed before Meng Tian could convince him to verify the order. Hu Hei then became Qin Shi, the second emperor, while Zhao Gao removed officials, executed rivals, and gradually seized control of the court. Rebellions erupted in 209 BCE. By 207, Zhao Gao had forced the second emperor to commit suicide, then installed Ziying, who killed Zhao Gao but could not restore the state. Ziying surrendered to Liu Bang, and the Qin dynasty disappeared in 26 BCE. China's first imperial succession was settled by stationary, the Sui dynasty, 612 CE. Emperor Yang had reunited China, expanded the Grand Canal, and inherited one of the strongest states on earth, so he decided to move more than 1 million soldiers toward Korea. The target was Goguryeo, a powerful kingdom controlling territory in northern Korea and Manchuria. An earlier Sui invasion in 598 had already failed through storms, disease, and logistical collapse. Emperor Yang treated that warning as unfinished business. In 612, official histories recorded 1,133, 800 combat troops assembled for the campaign, with even more laborers moving food and equipment. The figure may be exaggerated, but the operation was unquestionably immense. The departing columns were so long that the army reportedly required 40 days merely to leave its staging area. Size became the weakness. Supplies crawled behind the troops, commanders waited for imperial approval, and Goguryeo forces withdrew, harassed, and misdirected the invaders. A selected Sui force of about 305,000 crossed the Yalu River and advanced toward Pyongyang, only to retreat exhausted and exposed. At the Salsu River, Goguryeo troops attacked the withdrawing army. Traditional accounts claim that only 2,700 men from the expeditionary force returned, a number modern historians treat cautiously. But the scale of the disaster was obvious. Emperor Yang invaded again in 613 and 614. Conscription, transport demands, taxation, and repeated defeat ignited rebellions across China. In 618, officers strangled Emperor Yang at Jiangdu. Li Yuan soon replaced the remaining Sui claimant and founded the Tang dynasty. The emperor had built a canal to carry an empire. He used it to drain one, Persia, 1789. Lodef Ali Khan of the Zand dynasty controlled Shiraz, possessed a capable army, and had one administrator whose loyalty he failed to test. The Zand state had been breaking apart since the death of Karim Khan in 1779. Rival claimants fought, governors changed sides, and the Qajar leader Aga Muhammad Khan pressed south. Lodef Ali Khan nevertheless emerged as a dangerous opponent, young enough to campaign rapidly and bold enough to recover from repeated losses. His decisive error was leaving Shiraz in the hands of Haji Ibrahim, the city's powerful chief administrator, while marching out to confront a Qajar force. Haji Ibrahim had concluded that the Zand ruler was a threat to his position. Once Lodef Ali Khan was outside the walls, the administrator arrested Zand officers, neutralized the garrison, and closed the gates. Lodef Ali Khan returned and found his own capital locked against him. His family, treasury, supply base, and political center were now controlled by a man he had trusted to guard them. He besieged Shiraz, but could not break through before Qajar forces approached. The Zand ruler continued fighting for years. He captured Kerman in 1794, but Aga Muhammad Khan retook the city after a brutal siege. Latif Ali Khan was betrayed again, captured near Bam, blinded, taken to Tehran, and executed. The Zand dynasty did not lose its capital in battle. The doorman changed sides. England, August 22, 1485. Richard III arrived at Bosworth Field with the larger army and ended more than 3 centuries of Plantagenet rule with one cavalry charge. His challenger, Henry Tudor, possessed a distant claim to the throne and had spent much of his life in exile. Richard was the crowned king, but his seizure of power in 1483 and the disappearance of his nephews had fractured Yorkist loyalty. The forces of Thomas and William Stanley waited near the battlefield without fully committing to either side. As the fighting developed, Richard saw Henry moving with a relatively small bodyguard. Killing the claimant could finish the rebellion immediately. Richard led a mounted charge directly toward him, cutting through Henry's standard-bearer, Sir William Brandon, and throwing Sir John Cheney from his horse. The gamble almost worked. It also separated the king from the protection of his main army. William Stanley then committed his troops on Henry's side, surrounding Richard's group before it could reach its target. Richard's horse became trapped or lost in the marshy ground, but he continued fighting on foot. He was cut down and became the last English king killed in battle. His naked body was carried to Leicester, while Henry Tudor was proclaimed Henry VII. Richard had tried to shorten the battle by several minutes. He shortened his dynasty instead. Egypt, 31 BCE. Cleopatra VII had preserved the Ptolemaic dynasty through intelligence, money, and alliances, then placed the survival of her kingdom behind Mark Antony's fleet at Actium. The Ptolemies had ruled Egypt since 305 BCE. Cleopatra survived a civil war with her brother, allied with Julius Caesar, regained her throne, and later joined Mark Antony, one of Rome's most powerful commanders. Together, they controlled enormous resources across the eastern Mediterranean. Their opponent, Octavian, turned the struggle into a Roman war against a foreign queen. His admiral, Agrippa, captured key positions, cut supply routes, and weakened Antony's forces through hunger, desertion, and disease. By September 31 BCE, Antony and Cleopatra needed either a breakthrough or an escape. During the naval battle, Cleopatra's squadron broke through the fighting line and sailed south with the royal treasury. Antony left the battle and followed her. Ancient hostile writers portrayed this as a panicked flight, while modern historians continue to debate whether the withdrawal was planned, forced, or badly executed. The political result is clearer. Antony's remaining fleet surrendered, his allies defected, and Octavian invaded Egypt in 30 BCE. Antony and Cleopatra killed themselves after Alexandria fell. Cleopatra's son Caesarion was executed, and Egypt became a Roman province. The final Ptolemaic plan may have saved the treasury for a few months. It did not save the people who owned it. Austria-Hungary, July 1914. The Habsburg monarchy survived invasions, revolutions, and family disasters for centuries, then attached its future to a 48-hour ultimatum. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist. Leaders in Vienna decided to use the murder to crush Serbian influence. Germany offered strong support, later called the blank check, and Austria-Hungary delivered its ultimatum to Serbia on July 23. The document demanded the suppression of anti-Habsburg activity and required Serbian cooperation with Austro-Hungarian officials in proceedings connected to the assassination. Serbia accepted most demands but resisted provisions it believed violated its constitution and sovereignty. European governments asked for more time and negotiation. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28. Mobilization plans activated. Russia supported Serbia. Germany declared war on Russia and France, and Britain entered after Germany invaded Belgium. A regional punishment expanded into the First World War. The Habsburg military suffered catastrophic losses and became increasingly dependent on Germany. National movements grew inside the empire. Food shortages cut through its cities, and military defeat stripped Vienna of bargaining power. In November 1918, Emperor Charles I renounced participation in state affairs as Austria-Hungary broke into separate states. The dynasty wanted one small victorious war. It received several new countries. Russia, September 1915. Nicholas II inherited a dynasty that had ruled since 1613, then made himself personally responsible for every shell shortage, retreat, and military funeral. Russia entered the First World War with vast manpower but inadequate transport, weapons, and administration. In 1915, German and Austro-Hungarian offensives drove Russian forces through the Great Retreat. Nicholas responded by dismissing his cousin, Grand Duke Nicholas Nikolaevich, and assuming supreme command of the army himself. The decision changed the political meaning of defeat. Military failures could no longer be blamed on a general standing between the throne and the front. The emperor now signed his name directly beneath the war. Nicholas also spent long periods at military headquarters in Mogilev, hundreds of miles from Petrograd. Government in the capital remained heavily influenced by Empress Alexandra, whose German birth generated suspicion, and by the reputation of Grigory Rasputin. Ministers rotated rapidly while prices rose, railways failed, and cities struggled to obtain bread and fuel. In March 1917, strikes and demonstrations spread through Petrograd. Soldiers ordered to restore control mutinied instead. Senior generals concluded that abdication was necessary, and Nicholas surrendered the throne on March 15 under the modern calendar. The Romanov monarchy ended after 304 years. The man who went to the front to protect his crown left it unattended. The Ottoman Empire, October 1914. A dynasty founded around the end of the 13th century entered a European war through a naval attack that much of its own government had not formally approved. The empire had already lost territory in the Balkans and faced pressure from Russia, Britain, and France. On August 2, 1914, Ottoman leaders signed a secret alliance with Germany, but the government still delayed open entry into the conflict. Then two German warships, the Gaben and Breslau, reached Ottoman waters and were nominally transferred to Ottoman service as the Yavuz Sultan Selim and Midilli. German Admiral Wilhelm Souchon retained operational command. On October 29, the ships attacked Russian ports and vessels in the Black Sea. Some Ottoman leaders supported the operation, others were bypassed, and no ordinary declaration of war had preceded it. Russia declared war on the Ottoman Empire on November 2. Britain and France followed. The Ottomans fought for 4 years across the Caucasus, Mesopotamia, Palestine, the Dardanelles, and Arabia, suffering military defeat, mass displacement, famine, and internal destruction. The empire signed the Armistice of Mudros in 1918. Allied occupation and plans to partition Anatolia produced a Turkish nationalist movement under Mustafa Kemal. The new Nationalist Assembly abolished the Sultanate on November 1, 1922, and the last Sultan, Mehmed VI, departed aboard a British warship 16 days later. The Ottoman family survived. Its rule did not. These dynasties were not healthy buildings knocked down by a single careless hand. Each one already contained cracked foundations, rival factions, unpaid soldiers, or subjects who no longer accepted the price of obedience. The final mistake mattered because it converted weakness into motion. A forged order removed the best Qin heir. A Korean invasion consumed the Sui state. A locked gate erased the Zands. A cavalry charge killed the Plantagenets, and a naval withdrawal exposed the Ptolemies. 3 20th century monarchies then signed their own endings through a regional ultimatum, a personal military command, and an undeclared raid. The rulers involved expected their decisions to restore control. Most were not choosing between survival and destruction in their own minds. They were choosing between a cautious option and a dramatic one, and royal courts have always made drama look like strength. That was the final mistake.